Okay, so we're back on page 37 after our last puzzle. It was pretty fun finding out all those colors. After they solved it, Brendan said, "Did you like it? Isn't that good?" "Pretty good," Winston agreed. "I bet you make up 20 of those a day," said Brendan. More like 17, Winston said, trying for a joke. And the joke was apparently achieved because Brendan threw his head back and laughed. "Ha ha ha! 17, he said. He laughed again for several moments and then said, "I'm glad you're here. I'm looking forward to beating you at this." Winston blinked. He could almost hear Mal and Jake on either side of him, also blinking. But Brendan Root just continued smiling. "You think you're going to beat Winston?" said Mal. Brendan shrugged. "Sure. I mean, I'm going to try, right? You don't mind, do you, Winston?" Winston shook his head. No, try your best." "Nobody here likes puzzles more than you and me," said Brendan. "So one of our teams is going to win, and I think it might be mine." He was beaming with pride as if he had won already. He caught himself and tried on a serious expression. "But if you win, that's okay, too." "Thanks," Winston said dryly. He was wondering how they were supposed to get rid of this kid when Brendan was called away by his teacher. He waved to them all, smiling gleefully, and walked back to his group. The three boys watched him go with a mixture of amusement and awe. "Am I like that?" Winston said in a low voice. "No," said Jake. "Not even close," said Mal. "You let other people talk sometimes," said Jake. "Yeah, sometimes," Mal agreed. It's been known to happen." They watched Brendan's teacher gather his students into a team meeting. Jake said, "He's going to be tough, don't you think?" Winston nodded. Brendan was a little weird, but weird did not mean dumb. Often the opposite, in fact. There were enough people in the conference room now that the noise level had risen into a steady murmuring hum. Winston kept glancing over to the door on the stage, which would surely open at any moment. He had an alarming thought. What if the contest had already started? What if the puzzle was right here in front of them and Dimitri Simon was waiting for somebody clever to notice it? Winston looked around for anything that might qualify as a clue and saw nothing. There were a number of whiteboards on the wall, but these were erased and gleaming. No, nothing tricky going on there. Yet. He was going to have to sit back and wait for the event to begin. He drummed his fingers on the table and tried to be patient. He wished he had brought a puzzle book with him. "Hey, look at that," Jake said with some concern. Winston glanced over to where he was pointing and was amazed to see Mr. Garvey, red-faced, waving a finger at that other teacher, Rod Denham. Mr. Garvey seemed to be lecturing him. Mr. Denham wore a tight, humorless smile, and after a moment pointed at Winston and his friends as if suggesting that Mr. Garvey go back where he came from. They traded a few more words, glaring at each other. Then Mr. Garvey turned around and stormed away. As he returned to the team, Mr. Garvey's teeth were gritted and a vein pulsed on the side of his head. He looked ready to kill a small animal. He squeezed the back of one of the chairs as if he might pull it up and throw it against the wall, and never mind the fact that the chairs were bolted to the floor. The three boys glanced up at him, amazed and a little afraid. "What was that about?" Mal asked. "I shouldn't have gone over there," Mr. Garvey said. "Did he say something to you?" Jake said. "What did he say?" Mr. Garvey waved a hand like he wanted to forget the whole thing. He attempted a little chuckle. It wasn't very believable. The boys kept looking at him, and finally Mr. Garvey had to say, "Let it go, boys, just let it go." He sat down, folded his hands, and tried to regain his calm. Letting it go wasn't so easy. Mr. Garvey wasn't talking, so it wasn't like they had a choice. The traffic through the entrance had petered out, but there was still no sign of Dimitri Simon. Winston counted 10 teams. Was that all? He would have thought there'd be double or triple that number. He felt a vague disappointment. He liked the idea of hundreds of puzzle solvers all congregating together. Of course, the fewer teams competing, the better their chances. He cast his eyes over to the small crowd sizing up the competition. It was impossible to predict who the tough opponents would be. But that didn't stop Winston from trying. Rod Denham's team from Lincoln Junior High was clearly going to be trouble, although exactly what sort of trouble, Winston couldn't guess. What about the others? Brendan Root might be a serious opponent, but were his two teammates just as good? Before, the two of them had been playing rock, paper, scissors. Now they were thumb wrestling. Maybe they didn't plan on taking this too seriously. Over on the right was a team that was definitely taking it seriously. They were dressed in identical blue t-shirts that said Brookville Brains, and they had matching baseball caps. Did they use those shirts for other events? If they made up these outfits in a few days since the contest was announced, that indicated a level of organization that was almost scary to consider. Looking around, Winston counted twice as many boys as girls. Only one team was all female. The girl in the middle had her arms crossed as if this delay was a personal insult. The girl to her left was looking around with a faraway smile. The third girl looked too little to even be here. They didn't have matching uniforms, but their identical stillness among so much bustle and noise made them seem very serious indeed. Their teacher, a woman with a sculpted frizz of red hair, nervously jangled several bracelets on her left wrist. Winston decided the girls would be tough. He wondered where they were from. He didn't have time to consider the rest of the teams, because at that moment, the onstage door opened and Demetrius Simon bounded into the room, followed by two other men and one woman. The crowd exploded into delighted applause. Simon was dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, and by no means looked like a multimillionaire. He looked like he might run a comic book store, perhaps Dungeons and Dragons or Magic. The gathering with the kids when business was the gathering with the kids when business was slow. Simon was overweight. Indeed, he was downright fat. And his black beard was scragglier than in the picture on the potato chip bags. He was fantastically happy. "Hello," he said. He all but skipped to the podium, his arms wide as if he planned on giving everybody in the room a hug. "Whoa," said Jake. Mel laughed and said, "That's exactly what I imagined a guy who makes potato chips for a living to be like." Mr. Garvey glared at him and told him to shh. Simon leaned on the podium with his considerable body weight and beamed around at the audience as the applause tapered off. "Do you kids like puzzles?" "Oh no, I lost my spot," Simon shouted, which brought the cheering back to a full boil. Simon laughed. "Me too. All right, let's see. Here's one I like. What's the longest word you can think of that spells another word backward?" Anyone have guesses? Same spelling, backward and forward. Good luck.